Arne Slot has 3 new injury concerns as Liverpool stars miss training before Inter Milan. Arne Slot has been handed 3 selection concerns ahead of Liverpool's Champions League match against Inter Milan. Wataru Endo, Federico Chiesa and Cody Gakpo all missed Monday's open training session at the AXA Training Center, leading to concerns the trio may not be available to travel to Italy. Liverpool.com understands Chiesa is ill and Gakpo and Endo are suffering from knocks. It was an update that initially passed many by given the media spotlight surrounding Mohamed Salah. The Liverpool winger did train with his teammates 2 days on from that bombshell interview in the wake of the 3-3 draw against Leeds United. Salah's involvement does not necessarily mean he will play some part against Inter. That could be problematic if Chiesa and Gakpo are doubts, and would leave Rio Ngumaha as the only natural winger who is available. Dominic Szoboszlai has operated in a wide role in the last 3 matches and may well do the same in Milan. Jeremy Frimpong and Giovanni Leone were the only other absentees for the Reds ahead of the trip to Italy. Youngster Welody Lucky was involved with the group, as was Trey Nyoni. Liverpool will announce its squad later on Monday before Arne Slot and Alisson speak to the media from the San Siro ahead of the game. It's a match Liverpool can ill afford to slip up in after the shambolic 4-1 loss to PSV Eindhoven last time out. The Reds are now sitting in the 13th place in the league phase, and a point outside the automatic qualification places. This is Liverpool's 6th match in the Champions League, with the final 2 matches in the league phase to be played in January. Despite Salah's outburst and the cloud that is now hanging over the team, Liverpool heads into the Inter clash unbeaten in 3. A win would leave Liverpool in a strong position before the final 2 matches against Marseille and Qarabag. Should the Reds miss out on a top 8 finish, it will be forced to play a double-legged playoff in February. Liverpool avoided that fate last season after topping the league phase, but was eliminated by Paris Saint-Germain in the last 16 stage. Mohamed Salah dropped from Liverpool Champions League squad as Arne Slot takes action. Mohamed Salah has been omitted from Liverpool's Champions League squad to face Inter Milan following his explosive comments on Saturday, when he criticized the club and head coach Arne Slot. The winger claimed in an extraordinary tirade after the 3-3 draw at Leeds United that he had been thrown under the bus by the club, and added that certain figures wanted him out of Liverpool. That came on the back of a 3rd successive match in which Salah started on the bench. That won't be the case at the San Siro, however, with the Egyptian left out altogether from the travelling party. The update comes after Salah trained with the team on Monday, a few hours before the majority of the players flew to Italy. Liverpool.com understands the decision was made by club executives, in consultation with Slot. While no disciplinary action has been taken against Salah, the club feels a period away from the first-team action is best for all parties. That puts Salah's involvement against Brighton and Hove Albion into doubt. Liverpool's number 11 hinted in that bombshell interview that it could be his final game for the club. Slot confirmed last week that Salah was due to depart team up with the Egypt squad ahead of the African Cup of Nations on December 15th. It is unclear if that is still the plan. Meanwhile, Wataru Endo, Cody Gakpo and Federico Chiesa, who all missed training on Monday, were absent from the travelling squad that flew to Milan. With Salah also excluded, that leaves Liverpool with a significant selection issue in the wide areas. Rio Ngumaha is only natural winger named in the 19-man squad. Dominic Szoboszlai and Hugo Ekitike will most probably start in those positions in what is a crucial game for Liverpool's chances of securing an automatic qualification spot in the Champions League. The Reds currently sit a point outside the top 8 places after that disastrous defeat against PSV Eindhoven last time out. Slot will provide a further update on Salah, Endo, Gakpo and Chiesa from the San Siro, where he is due to speak to the media alongside Alisson. Mohamed Salah reaction: 3 absentees and youngster called up 5 things spotted in Liverpool training. Liverpool's open training session ahead of the Champions League fixture against Inter Milan was a little busier than usual as reporters flocked to Kirkby on Monday, primarily to see if Mohamed Salah was involved in the usual pre-match session. Such was the media interest in what is usually a rather banal event. Extra staff were deployed at the entrance to double-check who exactly was arriving. One journalist joked that he'd been called up last minute, while journalists from the majority of the national newspapers were in attendance. When the session finally got going, there was much more than Salah to keep an eye out for. Liverpool.com was among those at Monday's session, and here's what we spotted. Back to business. First and foremost, yes, Salah was indeed involved in training. There was a brief hubbub among the assembled reporters when he casually strolled onto the training field. Most players had already wandered out, so there was a growing feeling that Salah was set to sit this one out. Instead, his arrival drew every eyeball. One interested observer was Arne Slot, who will give his verdict on Salah's bombshell interview at Elland Road later on Monday. The Egyptian is expected to be omitted from the traveling party that flies to Milan. Squad reaction. If any members of the squad took umbrage with Salah's comments in the mixed zone at Leeds, that wasn't evident on Monday. Liverpool's number 11 laughed and joked with teammates at the AXA training centre, particularly Dominic Szoboszlai, who he partnered for a quick strength drill. Indeed, the mood seemed relatively upbeat despite the poor run of results. Salah seemed unperturbed, despite making himself perhaps the sport's biggest story over the last 24 hours. Who else was involved? There were 20 players who took part in Monday's session, but it was those who missed out that might be most pressing for Slot. There were 3 new injury updates, with Wataru Endo, Federico Chiesa and Cody Gakpo not involved at Kirkby. Liverpool.com understands Gakpo and Endo are suffering from knocks, while Endo is ill. It remains unclear whether they will travel to Italy, but should Salah also miss out, it could leave Liverpool with one senior winger in Rio Ngumha. Szoboszlai could present another option, and has started the last 3 matches on the right wing. Giovanni Leone and Jeremy Frimpong also missed Monday's session as expected. The number of defensive absentees means Slot was in need of additional numbers, and the Dutchman turned to Welity Lucky. The 19-year-old centre-back has previously trained with the senior team, and made his debut in the Carabao Cup loss against Crystal Palace in October. Liverpool debuted its new Adidas training gear in Monday's sessions. Getting in the festive spirit, the players donned red shirts and jackets, having been kitted out in green in the previous open training sessions this season. Mohamed Salah trains with Liverpool ahead of Inter Milan game after Arne Slot outburst. Mohamed Salah was involved in Liverpool training at the AXA training centre on Monday, 2 days on from that bombshell interview in the Elland Road mixed zone. The winger sought out journalists after the 3-3 draw against Leeds United to air his grievances following Arne Slot's decision to name him as a substitute for a 3rd consecutive game. Salah claimed in an explosive interview that he had been thrown under the bus by the club, while adding someone wants him to leave Liverpool altogether. The 33-year-old returned to the AXA training centre on Sunday along with his Liverpool teammates. With the world's media in attendance at the AXA on Monday, Salah took part in open training. Broadcasters and reporters are allowed access to training the day for 15 minutes before a Champions League match, with Monday's session well attended. Arne Slot's preparations for Tuesday's Inter Milan clash mainly overshadowed by Salah's comments, which included the revelation that the player and coach's relationship has broken down. After training, Liverpool's players will fly to Italy. But Salah is not expected to be in the squad for the Reds' 6th Champions League match this season. Liverpool.com understands that a decision has been to exclude him from the squad. He will certainly be the topic of several questions in Monday's press conference, which is to be staged at the San Siro. Alisson and Slot will field questions from reporters. As for Salah, his long-term future still remains uncertain at Liverpool. He implied on Saturday that he could leave the club in the January transfer window. The former Chelsea and Roma man is due to meet up with his Egyptian teammates next ahead of the African Cup of Nations. Elsewhere, Slot could be short of options against Inter, with Wataru Endo, Cody Gakpo and Federico Chiesa all missing training. The absence of the latter pair, along with Salah's expected exclusion, could Rio Ngumha as the only recognized winger in the squad.